came down along with my former bishop, talking about he was, helping him or assisting him. I don't know how that assistance was going or working out, and I didn't know enough about that to ask any questions at that particular time. But he came, and it was about money. It was about money. I could clearly see that. And I knew in my heart and mind, that's not what I want. That's nothing I want to do. I want to be able to bring help, light, and deliverance to people. Now, I didn't know what he was involved in, but there was something in my spirit that said, it's not worth just hanging around, being flashy, just being, having the cross or having the chain. It wasn't worth that if you don't have Christ. And so I made up my mind. No, I don't know what's going on here, but I'm going to have Christ in the things that I do and in the way that I move. Little did I know, and at that time, that was even before we formulated I Am My Brother's Keeper. But I imagine when that thing started coming up, because I got calls from the national church when I Am My Brother's Keeper was formulated. And they were very interested in some of the things that I was saying and some of the advocacy that I was presenting. I had got called into another preacher that happened to be a part of this jurisdiction. The same part. He had went off to California or no, out west. Let me say it like that. I don't want to say California, but he had went off. I guess some of the deeds were done in California, and he had done some things. And short of the long, he came up. There was some court, and they called me in from here, right in Illinois. They called me in for a deposition. This deposition was scheduled to be about a 10-hour deposition, of which I completed about 6 in one setting. And I was deposed to talk about, to answer questions as it pertains to church policy and as it pertains to some of the things that I had written about what the church was doing, not doing, and all of these type of things. And since he was in the same jurisdiction, they were interested to find out, did I know anything? And believe me, I was like the canary that sang. Whatever I knew, they knew. But also, it just so happens I didn't know a lot, but I was able to sit there for 6 hours and answer questions. And one of the things that I found that was very disturbing is that our church, like many others, we have a handbook. If I could find my black book, it's around here somewhere. We have a handbook and supplements to that handbook that tells the criminals, because that's what you are when you're a predator, when you're raping young ladies in your church, when you're a pedophile like this, whether you knew it or not. Because I think in the book, the sister, you said that at trial, he tried to contend he didn't know that what he was doing was wrong because he had done it so long. The devil is a lie. You know what you're doing is wrong. But the short of the long is we have these guardrails to help criminals get by. In other words, you can do this, you can do that, but there's nothing for those who have been victimized. Not a thing. There is not a procedure. There's not a group. There's not anything for people to reach out and hold on, and for people to put their arms around you. Listen. Love is a very interesting word, but one thing I find out about love is that love is the ability to see a person, their good and their bad, to see their negative and their positive and still embrace them, to see the pretty, the beautiful, and to see the ugly and still accept it and say, listen, I love you and I'm gonna hold on to you.
Yes.
We like to see the pretty. We love it when it's decked out. We love it when the money is flowing out of the pocket. Oh, I love you. I love you, Bishop. I love you this one. Listen, that is materialism. That's what I think Johnny Gill said years ago. That's a fair weather friend. Mm-hmm. Anytime you can love somebody when things are going good, that's horrible. That's horrible. But that's what we become. And dare say that we reduce these situations down to an inconvenience. Mm-hmm. Oh, you don't like the church. You don't love the church. This daughter here, and hear me, preachers, wherever you are, you can criticize me. I don't care. I don't care. God is making a way for me, and he has made a way. Listen, this is a daughter of the church. A daughter of the church. She is said as much. We can trace that back. This is one that's familiar with what has happened in this church. And there's, listen, all kinds of ways. And for the critic, get off my back now. Because there's all kinds of ways to be popular that does not include this. This is not a way that anybody chooses to be popular. Advocacy, and from my perspective here, this is not a way for anybody to choose to expand their ministry.
Not at all. And so the resistance that comes with this work.
That's right.
And to be honest, the warfare, not just the natural attacks, but the warfare of coming to take over a territory that has had strongholds for maybe generations or decades.
Generations and decades.
It's pretty about this.
Exactly.
I have not had not one time a pastor say, you know what? I want you to come and I want you to do and share with our children in this space. You know who welcomed me? It was a Baptist church.
That's something. Isn't that something? Yeah. Wow. That's amazing.
I didn't grow up Baptist. I didn't grow up Baptist. And obviously, I'm connected with my local house, but not one time. So I'm just perplexed why one would think sharing some of the most intimate, ugly elements of one's childhood, it's about the deliverance for me.
That's it.
I've never asked for sympathy or asked for any extension beyond grace and prayer and intercession.
Right.
Because at the end of the day, we all want to get to the ultimate goal, and that's to go meet with the Father.
That's it. And
it's about there is nothing awesome about this. If that was the case, then I would have went and enjoyed spending time in the back room. I stopped going to COGIC churches because I was frustrated with being summoned by the armor bearer to go to the back, talk to the pastor about what happened. Wow. This is not good gossip for the moment. Wow. This was actually my journey of healing. And again, I am thankful for the path that God has led me on to get this level of healing. But that is really the focus. It is not who's popular about talking about sex abuse. I have not met a person as of yet.
Right.
And I've been doing this work for over 20 years.
Yeah.
And as you knew, and even when we spoke, you didn't know me by name. You just knew it was the girls.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, absolutely.
So I could have continued to keep my being sacred, secret space because no one knew me by name.
Yeah.
They didn't know what arrow to attack. You didn't even know who I was as an individual.
That's it.
But they only knew if it wasn't a local church in a local jurisdiction. And some of them know me as the girls, but still don't know me by name or face.
Yeah.
Because again, it's been 20 something years.
Wow.
So, and then I mentioned my mother's name and then they're like, oh yeah, right. I remember you.
Yeah.
You're those girls.
Wow.
Right. So with that said, absolutely nothing about this is glamorous.
Yeah.
Nothing about this work, but I have been graced for this. And God has provided me with the strength, the tenacity, and with that said, I I do not play when it comes to survivors and cuddling people that choose to violate the law. Because that's the reality of it. Because
That's it.
for a person, I don't care which state you're in, there's no justification for raping a minor.
That's right.
Um,
Absolutely right.
Even some
Absolutely.
states may have lower ages as to when that is acceptable, but 12 and 14, I have not seen that as being an acceptable age for an adult to
This
engage in sexual abuse because
this
that
is
was sex slavery.
this is nothing but criminal activity. And that criminal activity being promoted and accepted. The unfortunate part is that we are so personality driven within our churches now that we'd have something that's totally evil but has a nice personality. I mean, that's all the way it pervades through our society. Look at our politics and look at some of the things that we do. People can have a horrible agenda, but because they are so personable, they're nice, they look nice, they look the part, we'll accept that. But the devil is a liar, he's a thief, and there is no truth in him. And I remember the saying, if it walks like a duck, quacks like a duck, it's a duck. You can believe what it is. And this is what we are facing here. I love the word that you said earlier. You talked about transformation, and that's what this is about, transformation. And we can go through some more things here, and I'm really not led because I just encourage those who hear this, get the book and read it. Okay, you need to know this sister is ministering through this book, and she is talking about what has happened, and she's making this, what I want to say, personable. These are decisions. As I was reading Sister Queen's book here, it is personable, not only because I know the area, I know Chicago, but I just look at it because I deal with young people now within the school context and all of that, and I'm always every year, you know, trying to make sure that I'm not only positioning them myself as their coach, but positioning myself as someone who can help them and give them strength and be a bridge to the other side. And I looked and read this young lady's testimony in this book, and I read from that perspective how she must have felt going from this to that, going from this situation to that situation. She got away from the dirty man and ran into a dirty woman, and that I, I mean, we could touch that. I really, you need to get the book to read because God guided this sister through some very dangerous and devastating things, and through some church isms. And I don't want to hear any excuses if from anybody else. This daughter has made it through some of the very most worst circumstances, and she has found the Lord and is holding on and serving him. I don't want to hear about these folks talking about some church hurt keeps me away from the church and keeps me away from God. No, no. If anybody has an excuse here, because I looked at this young lady's testimony, and believe me, it came up. Theodicy, the problem of evil and suffering, and those who are crying out to the Lord and God's response. This is it, part of Sister Queen's testimony in this book. And she talks about how she reconciled those things and how God through time actually
Yes.
reconciled things to her as well. You need to understand this. This is not a quick fix book. Some of you are going to be in situations or have been in situations where some of these things have happened and occurred. Um, uh, this young lady lays things out in a way that you can understand, that it's relatable, and that it's like you're seeing somebody that's in your neighborhood on your street that that is going through this. And so I encourage you, like I said, get the book. But there's a couple of things. That transformation element, this is what Christ has called us to do, to transform. The Grand Old Church, I'll labor with you as long as I can. I've got ideas. You've known it. I've written it. I've sent it to every presiding bishop that we have had, including my friend right now. Yes, he's my friend, Bishop J. Drew Shear, presiding bishop. Met him some years ago. I was at his church some years ago. I'm from Detroit, but I was at his church, and he and I have been friends ever since then. And but nevertheless, I put some information into his hands on an advocacy program for this church. I know this is election year and all of this, and this broadcast will come out right around the time of election. Um, we have got to, our officials have got to make a stand for those who have been victimized, and stand with those who have suffered this form of abuse and other related types of abuse within our church and otherwise. We have got to come up to the next level, because God is going to hold us accountable. No sense in talking about how great we are when we don't do things great. You know, we have a saying, the young kids, they say, okay, go ahead, be great today. You know, you go out for the athletic competition. They say, go ahead, man, be great. You know, we can't be great. We can be, but we are not great allowing these things to happen. We need to be great. We need to be great. We need to be there for these. Sister Guyton, as we wind this broadcast down, tell us what's in the future. What is next for Sister GerVaise? Tell us what's going on. What's next for you? Where's the Lord leading you?
I am ecstatic to be able to, from a spiritual journey, I'm in a good house. And I pray, even before we conclude, if we can have a prayer, right? That, and be specific with that, with those that may watch this broadcast, that God will lead and direct them to their place of being able to be restored. And that does not have to be in one particular denomination, but that God will lead them to the right path. But God has blessed me to be under the spiritual father, Archbishop William Hudson III. Total years, I started coming in 2001 when I left the Dirty Man Church, and I was a 10-year visitor. I had no interest of joining. And to be honest with you, my goal was just to sit back and relax. And what I love about God being so strategic, he knew who I was. He was aware of who I was. And there was a point I was like, I'm done with church. I'm done with God and these people on earth. Okay. I'm gonna just go ahead, and I'm done. Not saying I was gonna turn up to be in the world, but I just disconnected from the church was where I was. And Archbishop had gotten word to me and said, just tell her, we knew you were here. You're welcome to just come. You don't have to come and do anything. So when I came and he saw me, he stopped me. He said, I care about your soul. You don't have to be active on any ministries. You can come and not join. I care about your soul. And that's what the bottom line. This is the reason why the church doors is open, right? It's not for all this other stuff. It's about the souls that are at stake. And when I tell you the layers just begin to come off, the deliverance that took place, and like you said, our paths crossed unintentionally all these years. Had no clue who you were, but for every time and season there is a set time, and I believe this is one of the reasons why God was so insistent on the deliverance aspect for me, for this broadcast, to be able to share and come back to the Grand Old Church to share what deliverance looked like and to provide solid strategies and plans of how to ensure that there isn't a group that is isolated, that are abandoned, that we cannot eat our own children, we cannot neglect our own children, and to be able to have resources available to ensure that it's done in a healthy way. It saddened me, right? I eventually found my way back, but this wasn't where I was able to get healing and restoration. How much more powerful can we be as a church? And this is as a whole, if we actually demonstrate what the whole purpose of ministry is: healing, deliverance, and restoration.
Right.
And with that said, that is what was demonstrated at with Archbishop directly. And he's a true spiritual father. Anybody that know him, he's a straight shooter. He's not gonna let you sit here and cuddle your dysfunctionality and say, oh well, good luck with that. No, he will challenge you. And even with that, I remember I had a meeting with him and I was saying, and this happened, and that happened, and that happened. He was like, daughter, what do you want to be in 5 years?
Right, right, right.
What do you need to do to get there?
Right. That's it.
We're not licking these wounds for the next 30 years. Yeah. And it wasn't from a insensitive space. It was, you have to go and talk to somebody with therapy, Jesus, and come on, get the deliverance that you need. But you have to be in a movement. Yeah. You can't be in a stagnant place. So I believe there has to be a healthy balance. We're not saying to dismiss the voices of those who have experienced this level of abuse, but we shouldn't be paying the legal fees to represent the pastors and the violators either.
Absolutely.
Because it should be a very clear distinction. That should be something that they should have to figure out with any other legal matter. No, we're not. Were you paying for divorces too? Are we paying for if there's a huge violation that you're helping to sustain, if they were caught up in drugs and alcoholism? How do we provide legal resources for predators,
right,
that have hurt our own? Because there is a disconnect, because there's no way, as you shared earlier in this broadcast with your daughter, it was like, wait, hold on, what happened? Yeah. Okay, that's all right. We're gonna get these friends together. We're going, right? That's right. So how do we make the conscious effort to dismiss and help them to kind of figure it out? I am thankful because clearly God has assigned those individuals to me and my walk and my journey. But more importantly, how much more impactful is it to provide the resource? Why do we have to piece this together and go and get these random strands of mistruths or misunderstanding? Yeah. And my love for my foundation and respect for the Grand Old Church, that was tainted because initially the representatives, his bishop at the time, spoke up about it publicly. Miraculously, they had a conversation and it was all swept under the rug and an apology was given. It was then representation even for them, and not one person had a conversation with me or my sibling. Yeah. Right. So the automatic, because you are a brother in the faith, yeah, so you get a pass, or under the umbrella of, oh, we're operating from a place of grace and restoring. With the restoration, you got to get some deliverance first. How you restoring dysfunctionality? What we have to be accountable, right? So, with that said, that was the part that I was so hurt by, that the Grand Old Church paid the legal fees, yeah, and the board members that was involved that was aware, and the dirty man acknowledged that he had done this vocally and to various board members. So it wasn't a point of if, it was a confirmation. So many survivors don't even get that aspect aspect of it exposed or shared, or that acknowledgement. And, again, with my mother being there and fostering this environment and what that looked like from a legal standpoint, this has been a journey of healing that I do not take for granted. And I give all glory to God. And I am thankful to be able to share some key takeaways that has been very impactful for my life. And I've encouraged those who will watch. So